In this 2004 romantic movie, the opening scene shows different women sharing their insights on where to meet men likely to date and what qualities to look for. Later, men are seen answering the same question about where to meet women and other people. The protagonist, Sarah Nolan, is a newly divorced woman, and her family is eager to see her dating again. They suggest various eligible men they know, with her dad assuring her that there is life after divorce, despite his own long-lasting marriage. Even her brother tries to help by putting up a magazine cutout of a man, though he doesn't personally know him. However, Sarah would rather have a dog and feels uninterested in dating. It has been 8 months since her divorce, and her family is becoming increasingly concerned. Her brother even suggests some married guys if she's interested in an affair, which Sarah dismisses. The scene then shifts to Jake, also a divorced man, who is working on carpentry. His friend Charlie delivers some news about the judge liking Jake, but also threatens to call her or get him arrested, possibly related to his divorce proceedings. Jake is a boat maker who works with wood, contrasting with the trend of using fiberglass for boats. Charlie believes that Jake's obsession with boats contributed to his divorce, and now he has to pay alimony. Back at Sarah's house, her family leaves after trying to encourage her to enter the dating world again, complimenting her appearance and personality. Despite their efforts, Sarah removes all the photos her family put up on the fridge, except for the magazine guy's picture. In Jake's studio, he discusses how he thinks women plan every narrative in a relationship, leaving men to guess the script they create. Jake admits that he's taking a break from the dating life to heal from the divorce. Sarah goes to the grocery store, hoping to find eligible men there. She has an awkward encounter with the chicken seller, who offers her a discount for more chicken, but she declines, mentioning that she eats alone next to a sink. Later, Sarah visits a school center and asks the kids about their family situations. Most of the kids talk about their parents' bad marriages. The scene shifts to a bamboo dance, where a girl is disturbed by a boy, leading her to hit him and cause a massive bleeding incident. A student's dad, Bob, talks to her and encourages her to spruce herself up. Bob's presence is comforting, and he asks what Austin, the precocious kid, thinks about them. Sarah seems to like the incorrigible man. Back in Jake's apartment, he and Charlie watch Dr. Zhivago. Jake is in a self-pitying mood, but Charlie doesn't want any of it. To help Jake move on, Charlie suggests he should go out with other women, and even proposes setting him up with a young colleague. However, Jake is more interested in something romantic, rather than just physical connections. Meanwhile, Sarah's sister prepares her for a date and offers dating tips. However, Sarah is hesitant and reluctant to go through the dating process again. She opens up about her lack of intimacy in her life and worries that she might not handle it well. Despite her apprehensions, she decides to go on a muffin date. However, to her surprise, she spots her dad, Bill, who is about to meet a lady friend, not realizing that she answered her dad's personal dating ad seeking a companion. Horrified by the situation, Sarah leaves abruptly but is stopped by Bill. Bill reassures her that he's glad he's stepping into the dating world again. But as he sees her off, he reveals that there are other women who have responded to his ad. The family jokes about the horrifying meet-up with Dad. Later, Carol arrives and confesses that she went online pretending to be Sarah and created a dating profile for her. Now they are in offensive mode and actively looking for a partner. Carol places her profile and lists must-love dogs as a requirement. They have already vetted the other 19 responses on her profile. As she starts going through the voice messages one after another, she finds them intolerable. However, one man catches her attention, particularly the lawyer for his good intro. So, she goes on a date with Walter and shares the story of seeing her dad on a boring date. It turns out that Walter is hoping for a woman in her 20s, despite listing his age range as 25-45, making him seem like a creep interested in younger women. Then Sarah goes on another date, with a guy who appears depressive and a bit clingy. This man seems unlikable, as he has been on 17 dates but hasn't managed to secure any second dates. Women seem to escape him. He is very sensitive, and in public, he embarrasses Sarah by crying. Being a nursery teacher, she tries to comfort him by singing a children's song. The next date begins with arm wrestling, but the man turns out to be a bit of a freak in a weird way. Charlie and Jake go to an art exhibit that looks like a thrift store and bump into Sherry, Charlie's co-worker, known for having slept with half the guys in their office. Charlie appears interested in sleeping with Sherry, but she doesn't pay much attention to him. Meanwhile, Jay talks to Sherry and tells her that he's not interested in a serious relationship, he just wants her to go away. Hearing those not-so-sweet words, Sherry indeed moves on and jumps to another guy. Charlie hands her a printout of Sarah's dating ad, possibly suggesting that she should consider someone like Sarah. Jay and Charlie see the photo in the ad, and think that Sarah looks young, complimenting that she'll look good when she grows up. Jay is not initially interested in pursuing anything with Sarah, but Charlie takes it upon himself to make arrangements and tells Jay to bring a dog, possibly as a conversation starter or an icebreaker. Sarah goes to the park with the dog from her brother, even though she isn't quite sure how to handle dogs, treating them more like kids. The barking white dog growls at Sarah's dog, but then Jay arrives, and it turns out the white dog is his. Jay tries to command the dog to stop or sit, but the dog doesn't comply until he says roll over and play dead, which the dog follows impressively. Sarah is impressed by Jay's control over his dog. Jake happens to come along and realizes that Sarah is the same person from the dating ad, but is unrecognizable without her graduation cap and gown. Jake starts a conversation about the dog and some peculiar topics, but it turns out that it's Charlie's dog, not Jake's. They drop the pretense of using dogs as an excuse to meet. Jake admits that he loves dogs and had one before with an ex, but he had to put the dog down, not the ex. He takes a look at Mother Teresa, the big dog. They continue joking around and gradually become more comfortable with each other, being honest about their false pretenses and sarcasm. Jake is curious about the word voluptuous, but Sarah seems offended. However, Jake explains that he meant it in a specific context, and starts to spill some inappropriate words, as he admits to being nervous and not accustomed to meeting new people. After the awkward encounter at the park, Sarah and Jake end up running into each other again. Both admit that they were set up by other people. Sarah pretends that it's late, and uses her dog as an excuse to leave and go home. However, Jake expresses his interest in meeting again. Later, Sarah goes to her dad's house and meets his new girlfriend, Dolly. Carol, being the nosy sister, already knows about Sarah's date with Jake, and even brings up the fact that she previously stole Sarah's ex-boyfriend, Danny Shee. Carol defends her actions in the past, but also encourages Sarah to view her meeting with Jake as a growth opportunity. She even lists other possible men for Sarah to date. Then Bill introduces Dolly, the new woman in his life, to his daughters. The sisters feel awkward as Bill and Dolly smooch in front of them. Despite this, they appreciate the house and other items. Dolly is described as a homely woman who has been divorced multiple times. They discuss their mom, and Dolly talks about her concerns that the sisters might see her as an intruder. While Carol and Sarah are arguing, Bob and Austin pass by. Bob, who is already divorced, gets invited to join them for dinner at Dolly's home. During the dinner, they all get to know Bob better, discovering that he is finishing his PhD in American history. Everyone likes Bob, and Bill even endorses Sarah to him. However, Carol remains sarcastic about Bob, and they have a conversation about some embarrassing moments from Sarah's past that the family remembers. Later, Carol and the younger sister sing a song that Sarah had sung before, and Bob joins in to play the piano as an accompaniment. Eventually, Sarah joins the women in singing and dancing, making it a lovely time. In the car, Carol and Sarah discuss the sing-along, and Carol seems to like the idea of Bob being with Sarah, considering him hot with a PhD, which has a humorous double meaning. However, Sarah is hesitant because Bob is the father of one of her students. Sarah has a realization that she might not have left her ex-husband if he hadn't left her first. The sisters express their love for each other. Jake and Charlie try the boat, and it becomes evident that Jake really likes Sarah as he sees something special in her. He wants another chance with her, despite the dog possibly ruining their previous encounter. Jake is no longer benched from dating life. On the other hand, Charlie is pessimistic about it. June, the younger sister who also works at the daycare center, catches Bob's attention, although she is unaware that they are staying because of her. Her brother is gay and is preparing for Halloween. When Bob arrives, he comments on how involved Sarah's family is in her life. They both drink a shot and acknowledge the attraction between them. However, Sarah still hesitates because he is Austin's father. Bob reassures her, saying that there's no rule against parents dating teachers. Later that night, Jake calls Sarah and asks to see each other again, and she smiles, considering it another shot at a second date. They meet up at a Middle Eastern restaurant, where Carol wears an amazing low-cut dress and convinces Sarah to buy a similar one. Jake chose the place because he knows the owners and likes the ambience. He also speaks some Persian. Mr. Armenian comments to his wife to wear something revealing like Sarah, and his wife responds positively, saying that if her husband looked like Jake, she would. Jake introduces himself as a boat builder, but no one buys his boats. He wants to skip the small talk and suggests getting to know each other intensely. Sarah admits that he is a bit scary, but they both open up about being divorcees. Sarah shares her story about her ex-husband no longer loving her, something she never said before. After dinner, Sarah takes Jake home with the intention of a night of love. However, because they don't have a condom and won't have sex without one, they drive to the nearest pharmacy. Unfortunately, the closest one has closed down, so they go to another one, even switching seats to drive. They are unfortunate again, as there are no more condoms available. Nevertheless, they continue the chase to find one until Jake finally succeeds, seeming to believe the whole story. However, Sarah no longer seems interested. Jake understands, and just stares at her for a bit. Later, Carol is at Sarah's house and gives her some meat, teasing that there's so much meat in the fridge for every man who answers the ad. While Jake is a great guy and they have connected, Sarah doesn't seem to be ready for a relationship with him. She feels that Jake has the whole dating thing going on, but she is still relearning how to navigate love and relationships after being married for many years. Sarah simply wants a simple life with someone she loves. Then Jake finally gets a customer for the boats. However, the client wants to take it apart and won't use it for boating. Jake is torn, as he doesn't want to compromise his loyalty to wooden boats, but also doesn't want to lose a potential client. He talks about his date with Sarah, describing it as magical, and expresses his desire for more of it. At a party, Bill introduces another woman in his life. The other relatives talk negatively about Kevin, and Aunt Eileen sets Sarah up with a cousin. During the event, Bill gives a speech and even recites a poem. Sarah is inspired by his words, particularly the message that there is no age too young or too old to find love. However, it becomes evident that Bill and Millie are parting ways. Sarah drives Millie back to her house, and during the ride, Millie asks about the new woman who seems to be her competition for Bill's affections. The women discuss the common phenomenon of men pursuing younger women. They arrive at Millie's house, where they continue to talk about Sarah's failed marriage, as Millie thought they were a happy couple. Millie is currently active on an online dating site, and she shows Sarah some of the ads she has created for herself. She justifies the embellishments, saying that even though it involves some lying, it's necessary to make oneself more appealing in the world of online dating. So they talk about Kevin, who is a fireman. Things seemed good between Molly and Kevin, until the topic of having kids came up. Kevin was not ready to have children until Molly got older, which hurt Molly's ego. Eventually, Kevin had an affair and now has a baby with someone else, further adding to Molly's pain. Later, at the park while laying with Mother Teresa, Bob appears with Austin. Austin is happy about getting a new puppy and is very excited. Bob shares that Austin is very happy in school and likes Sarah. Austin even gets a bigger dog. Then Jake calls her back, and they go on another night together. Jake flatters her and expresses how much he wants to be with Sarah. However, Molly knocks on Sarah's door, causing a problematic interruption. Molly is talking to Jeremy, who is only 17 years old, while Molly is older. He lies about his age, claiming to be 15. And Molly eventually admits her real age, but lies a little by saying she is closer to her real age. They send the kid back, and Molly and Sarah seem to be closer than ever. Later, she goes to Bob's house and makes herself look pretty. However, upon knocking at Bob's door, June is in Bob's house too. Sarah gets discouraged and thinks that Bob and June might have a thing together. She gets heartbroken seeing this, as she thought there was something between her and Bob. Meanwhile, at Sarah's house, Jake is with Mikey and Mother Teresa. Mikey is very drunk and enjoys the company of Jake. Mikey has been kicked out by his girlfriend. Jake comes around because he thinks there might be a problem. Then Jake asks Sarah to go on a boating date. However, Sarah admits that she doesn't know how to row a boat. So Jake goes behind her and teaches her, as they pretend to be rowing together. Jake and Sarah start kissing, but their moment is interrupted when Mikey rolls down the stairs, because Jennifer calls him back and leaves the dog. Jake volunteers to drive the very drunk Mikey home. Sarah is left feeling sad, because their rowing date wasn't finished, but Jake promises to return. Later, as Sarah prepares for a night with Jake, the doorbell rings, and it's Bob. Bob clarifies that nothing is going on between him and June, and proceeds to kiss Sarah. However, Jake appears early because Mikey suddenly passes out. Sarah introduces both men, but the tension in the love triangle is palpable. Bob decides to leave, and Jake follows suit, feeling hurt and thinking that Sarah lied to him. Sarah doesn't want Jake to go, but he misunderstands and leaves. Sarah puts her brother to sleep and then takes care of Mother Teresa on the couch. At school, June apologizes to Sarah for the thing with Bobby, presumably referring to her being at Bob's house earlier. They have a family dinner for Thanksgiving, and Bill sits with his 3 women at the same table, enjoying the cozy atmosphere. Meanwhile, Charlie and Jake go to a strip club to celebrate Thanksgiving. But Jake still obsesses about Sarah and has to try to move on. Aunt Elaine appears again and sets Sarah up with her optometrist. Family members continue to try to set her up with other men. Sarah talks to Molly, and Molly admits that she likes her dad, despite his shenanigans. Later, Sarah talks to her dad and scolds him for dating Dolly so easily. She rants about her experiences as a lonely divorcee. Sarah feels pity for Molly because she understands what she's going through. Despite everything, it becomes evident that Bill still loves Sarah's mom. Sarah goes to the grocery again to buy chicken breasts, but the vendor still sells him the specials and acts like a listener. After buying the chicken, she goes on dating sites and photoshops her face into different photos, creating puns and funny profile bios to improve her dating presence. Feeling courageous, Sarah goes on a string of dates. The first date is with someone who is only focused on himself. Then she goes on another date with a dad, who even brings his 14-year-old daughter along. Sarah is determined to improve herself as the new Sarah. She goes out with Bob, and they spend a wonderful night together at a hotel. However, in the morning, Bob's personality changes when Sarah realizes he slept with June. Bob takes it nonchalantly, saying that they look good together, so it doesn't matter. This angers Sarah because she thought Bob was acting as a sweet and sensitive dad. She takes off his glasses, revealing that they are fake, and ruins them. But they are actually real. After giving Bob an angry monologue, he leaves as if it's nothing, and Sarah is left crying and feeling betrayed for trusting him. The sisters gather around and comfort Sarah. They then talk about Jake, the condom man, but Sarah is hesitant to pursue him, as she feels she already blew her chance. Jake and Charlie watch Dr. Zhivago again, and Jake finally agrees not to do certain things, like chopping up the boat for sale, or dating every girl that Charlie suggests. Later, Sarah meets with his co-teacher and partner, Eric. Then the gay couple takes Sarah to a manicure. She sees Jake outside, wearing padding, but he is out with Sherry. However, Sherry doesn't understand Dr. Zhivago like Sarah does, which disappoints her, leading her to send the two away. Jake, though he takes a look at Sarah peeking, still hasn't lost interest in her. He drops Sherry home and ends the date there. Later they are at the dinner table, where Sarah goes into detail about how she made a fool of herself chasing after Jake. Meanwhile, Jake hangs out with Charlie's dog. Bill goes to check on the boat parked outside the baker's shop, which is near Jake's place. Jake and Bill start talking, not knowing that they are both mutual with Sarah. However, when Jake mentions that he will chop the boat in half to sell it, Bill disagrees and is horrified. Jake talks about a woman being a loss for him, not realizing that Bill is referring to his daughter, Sarah. Bill visits Sarah's place and jokes that his cousin Donovan is actually adopted. Then, Bill repeats the same phrase that Jake spoke earlier, revealing that he heard it from Jake. Sarah goes to Jake's house, but Charlie is there and offers himself up, which Sarah refuses. Charlie then realizes that she is the must-love dog's woman. Then Charlie tells her off, saying that she ruined Jake's passion for boating. Eventually, he tells her where Jake is. Jake is at a river, rowing his boat. Sarah gets into a boat with rowing girls, and Mother Teresa also joins in. The rowing girls push and row harder until they spot Jake. However, Jake is deeply engrossed in his world of rowing, and continues without noticing them. Jake accidentally bumps into the water, but he finally sees Sarah. Mother Teresa can now swim, and Sarah swims towards Jake. Then, Mother Teresa joins them on the boat. Sarah and Mother Teresa go aboard, and Sarah could have called Jake, but she chose to make this gesture instead. Sarah talks to Jake, and becomes more honest this time. She feels that he is now ready to make it work with her. Jake just smiles, indicating that he is open to the possibility as well. The scene cuts to the chicken shop, where the seller sees her, and goes about giving Sarah what she always requests. Sarah buys a lot of meat. Later on, Jake arrives with dog food, implying that they are together. Out of nowhere, they share a romantic kiss. Jake goes on a barbecue with the Nolan family, and they also have their own dog. Later, during the mid-credits scene, different couples, like Carol and her husband, answer how they met. Carol's husband doesn't remember, but simply says he loves her. Then Bill and Molly share their story. Sherry is seen with a younger man, who turns out to be Donovan. The Parshigan couple promotes their restaurant instead of answering the question, and the scene shifts to Sarah and Jake,